The dogs growl in the fog. The morning fog was thick, like a wall of white smoke. The trees stood silent. No wind, no birds, just the cold and quiet. Corporal Jace moved slowly through the forest, his boots soft on the wet ground. His eyes scanned the area, his weapon ready. Beside him walked Max, his loyal military dog. Max was big, strong, and smart. He had saved Jace's life more than once. They were deep inside the border zone now, a place where enemies sometimes crossed into human territory. Jace was on a simple patrol. But something didn't feel right today. Suddenly, Max stopped. His body went stiff. His ears twitched. Then, he growled, low and deep. Jace raised his weapon and whispered, "What is it, boy?" Max didn't move forward. Instead, he turned his head and looked into the trees, then started walking, slowly. Jace followed, heart beating faster. His breath showed in the cold air. Max led him down a small slope toward a patch of dark earth. There, hidden between the roots of a large tree, was something strange. It looked like a body, half covered in dirt and leaves. It was not human. Jace's eyes widened. The armor was alien, black, sleek, and cracked. The figure was female, her skin pale blue, her long hair tangled with blood. She was badly wounded. A strange symbol glowed weakly on her chest. She was the enemy. Jace stepped back and aimed his gun. But Max didn't growl anymore. Instead, Max sat beside the alien, calm and alert. "What are you doing?" Jace whispered. "She's the enemy." Max stayed still. Jace looked again at the alien. She was breathing, but only just. Her eyes fluttered, open, golden and tired. She didn't try to move. She didn't speak. She just stared at Max. Something about her expression was not what Jace expected. She didn't look angry. She looked scared. She looked lost. Jace touched the earpiece on his helmet. He thought about calling it in. He should report this. He should leave her there. But Max wasn't moving. The dog licked her hand, gently. Jace hesitated. This wasn't like Max. He had been trained to attack enemy soldiers, but here he was, guarding her like a friend. "Who are you?" Jace asked quietly. The alien blinked, then whispered something. The language was strange but soft. She looked weak, too weak to fight. Jace knelt beside her. Her leg was badly burned. Her armor had melted into her skin in places. She was in pain, shaking, cold. He pulled out a blanket and wrapped it around her. "What am I doing?" he muttered. He looked around. No sign of more enemies, no weapons, just her, just Max. And the thick fog that kept them hidden. Jace made a choice. He picked her up. She was lighter than he expected. Max stayed close as Jace carried her back through the trees, back to his transport. Instead of driving to base, Jace turned toward the old farm he had passed many times, abandoned and hidden. It was risky, but safer than the military camp. Couldn't explain it, but he didn't trust the higher command with her. She didn't resist. She just looked at him as if confused by his actions. They reached the barn. It smelled of dust and old hay. Jace laid her gently on a pile of blankets. Max curled up next to her. Jace sat down and stared at her. Her wounds needed cleaning. He opened his med kit. "This doesn't mean I trust you," he said, cleaning the blood from her arm. "But Max trusts you. That's something." She watched him with quiet eyes. When he touched her shoulder, her armor blinked and glowed for a second. It scared him, but then it faded. She whispered again. Jace shook his head. "I don't understand your words." But then she spoke something else, just one word. "Jace." He froze. His name. She had said his name. How do you know my name?" She didn't answer. Her eyes closed. She passed out. Jace sat back, heart racing. What was this? Max looked up and gave a soft bark as if to say, "You'll see." The fog outside still rolled across the field, hiding the world from sight. But inside that quiet barn, something strange had begun. A dog had found an enemy, but maybe she wasn't the enemy at all, and Jace had a feeling this moment would change everything. The enemy in the barn. The barn creaked as the wind pushed against its old wooden walls. Light from the setting sun slipped through the cracks, casting thin lines of gold across the dusty floor. Inside, the alien woman lay unconscious on a makeshift bed of hay and blankets. Her skin shimmered faintly in the dim light, bruised and cut, but still glowing in an odd, beautiful way. Her breathing was slow but steady. Jace sat across from her, watching silently. Max lay between them, head on his paws, eyes half closed, but alert. The dog hadn't moved much since they returned. It was as if Max had decided this alien wasn't just some stranger. She was important. Jace was still trying to make sense of it all. A wounded alien on human land near the war border. He should have reported her, turned her in, followed orders. But Max had reacted differently, and when she whispered his name, Jace, it sent chills down his spine. She knew him, but how? He stood up and walked to the edge of the barn. There was an old sink there. The pipes still worked if you pumped them hard enough. He filled a bowl with water, grabbed a cloth, and returned. As he gently wiped the dirt and dried blood from her face, he noticed something odd. Her skin wasn't like normal alien soldiers. It was softer, more flexible, not covered in battle tech like the others he'd seen. Her armor seemed to grow from her body like living metal, and it pulsed slightly as if sensing his touch. Strange blue patterns ran across her arms, almost like tattoos, but when he wiped across one, it blinked and shifted. "Is it alive?" Jace whispered. Suddenly, she stirred. Her eyes opened slowly. Gold irises glowed in the fading light. She looked at him. Not afraid, not angry, just confused. "You're awake," Jace said quietly. She tried to speak, but only a soft whisper came. The words were not in English. He couldn't understand them. She blinked, struggling to stay conscious. Then slowly, she looked down at Max. The dog wagged his tail once. Her lips moved again, forming soft alien sounds. She reached out a trembling hand and placed it gently on Max's head. Max leaned into the touch like an old friend had returned. Jace frowned. "What's your connection with him?" Then it happened. The device on her wrist, half embedded in her arm, glowed bright green. A small beam of light stretched from the device and scanned Max. For a second, the barn filled with faint humming. Max stood still, completely calm. Then the light vanished. The alien closed her eyes again and whispered something else, softer this time. Jace pulled his notepad from his gear bag. He quickly jotted down the sounds she made. Maybe someone could translate them later. He leaned in, closer. "You said my name earlier. Who are you?" She opened her eyes again and pointed weakly at a pouch on her belt. Jace looked, then gently opened it. Inside was a small crystal shard, deep blue and pulsing with inner light. Jace had never seen tech like this before. It didn't look dangerous. More like a storage device? He held it up. "Is this why you came here?" The alien nodded slowly. Then she passed out again. Max stood and gave a short bark. Jace looked at him. "What now?" Max turned and trotted to the barn door, barking again, louder this time. Jace followed him outside. The night had fully fallen now. Stars lit up the sky and the fog had mostly cleared. In the distance he could see a glimmer of red lights. Drones. Patrol drones. "Damn it," Jace muttered. "They're close." He rushed back inside and looked at the alien woman. She was still unconscious. He didn't know if she could walk, but he had to decide. Leave her behind or risk everything. Max barked again, but not in warning. It was more like urgency. Like he was saying, "We don't have much time." Jace stared at the crystal in his hand, then at the alien, and finally at Max, I don't know who she is, he said softly, but you've never been wrong before. He placed the crystal in his pocket, picked her up again carefully and prepared to move her to a safer location deeper in the forest. But just before stepping outside, he noticed something new. The tattoos on her arms were changing. They shifted and formed something Jace recognized. Letters in English. One word slowly appeared across her skin. Help. Jace shivered. Whatever this alien was, she wasn't here to fight. She was here to ask for something. And now, hiding in an old barn with his loyal dog and a wounded alien who somehow knew his name, Jace realized something terrifying. This wasn't a normal war encounter. This was personal, and something far bigger had just begun. Whispers of the past, the forest was dark again, thick with shadow and moonlight. Jace had moved the alien girl, carefully, to an old cabin deeper in the woods. It was his private shelter, one he used on long patrols when he wanted to be away from the world. He had built it himself years ago, using scrap and memory. Now that shelter held something far stranger than rest. An alien soldier, unconscious, glowing faintly beneath his spare blankets. Max sat by her side, always alert, his eyes moving between her and the door like a sentinel who already knew this wasn't just survival. This was destiny. Jace couldn't sleep. He sat at the small desk, staring at the glowing blue crystal in his hand. It pulsed softly like a heartbeat. Whatever it wasn't ordinary tech. It felt ancient, but advanced. Human scanners couldn't read it. His field device had tried and failed. No data, no structure. But Jace had another idea. He opened his old data logs, the kind kept offline, records from the early days of the war, back when he was just a boy. The war had taken his parents, his town, his peace. But there had been one report he never forgot. The day of the Ashen Field massacre. A Black Ops unit had vanished after a betrayal. Jace's father had been on that mission. Only pieces of bodies were found. The official report said enemy sabotage, no survivors. Jace had memorized those names. He scrolled through the decrypted records. Then his heart stopped. There she was, a still image, barely clear. Same markings, same pale blue skin, but younger. She was standing behind enemy lines, watching the battlefield. Label, unconfirmed witness, possible defector, codename, Cirrus. Jace leaned back slowly. You were there, he whispered. You saw what happened. He stared at her sleeping form. She didn't look like a soldier now. She looked fragile, almost human. Her face was peaceful, no longer twisted in pain. Max licked her hand once and lay down again. Jace rubbed his face, trying to think clearly. If she had been there, if she really did know something, then she might know the truth about his father. He stood up and walked to her side. Cirrus, he said quietly. That's your name, isn't it? Her eyes fluttered. The soft glow returned under her skin. Cirrus, he said again. What happened back then? Why were you there? She opened her eyes. Slowly. Her voice was weak, but it came in broken English now. You were small, she said. Jace froze. What? She reached out, touching the scar on his arm. You ran. Fire. Screams. She stopped, swallowing hard. I saved one. Jace stumbled back a step. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His memory flashed. He was running, crying, surrounded by burning trees. A shadow had pulled him from a crater. He always thought it was a soldier. But now, it was you, he whispered. Cirrus nodded. They wanted all dead. I disobeyed. Jace sat down hard. The room spun. His whole life he had believed one truth, that the enemy were monsters, that no alien could be trusted, but one had saved him, and he never knew. He looked at her. Why now? Why come back? Saris's eyes filled with tears. Because it begins again. Worse than before. She reached for her wrist device. Her fingers shook as she tapped a code into it. The small crystal Jace had held lit up and projected a map in the air. Red points blinked across human cities. Military, bases, civilian zones. Then another layer appeared. Secret operations, human and alien. Black projects, biological tests, weaponized AI. This, not your war, Saris said. Your people, and mine, both used. Jace stared at the map. His heart sank. They're using us, like pieces on a board. She nodded. I ran. I took proof. They hunt me. He looked at her again. This wasn't just a chance meeting. This wasn't just Max stumbling on a wounded soldier. This was something deeper, something that had been moving through time for years, pulling them back together. But before he could ask more, Max jumped to his feet and growled. Lights flashed through the trees. Drones. Jace moved quickly, covering the crystal and helping Saris to sit up. Her body was weak, but her eyes were sharp now. We have to go, he said. No, she replied. We send the message first. Show the truth. Jace opened the comm station in the cabin. It was old, but still functional. They had one chance, to bounce the crystal's message through a civilian net. He connected the crystal. It began to upload. Outside, drones flew closer. Max barked wildly. Jace grabbed his weapon. I'll hold them off. Saris placed a hand on his shoulder. Together. And in that moment, Jace didn't see an alien. He saw the one who had saved him as a child, the one who carried the truth, the one who might help stop the war. He nodded. Max barked again, and the three of them stood in the small wooden cabin, waiting for the battle to come. One that had started long ago, on a burning field neither of them had truly escaped. The secret she carried. The old cabin shuddered as the first drone passed overhead, its engines humming like an angry insect. Jace crouched beside the window, rifle in hand, heart thudding in his chest. Outside, the beams of searchlights swept through the trees, drawing white streaks across the darkness. Max growled low, his body tense and ready to strike at the first sign of danger. Saris leaned against the wall, still weak but awake, her golden eyes focused on the data projection hovering in the air. The message upload had begun. The crystal, now connected to Jace's communication hub, was sending its contents through, a hidden relay network jumping from one abandoned satellite to the next. It was slow, it was risky. But if it worked, the truth would spread before their enemies could stop it. And the truth was ugly. The files inside the crystal were more than secrets. They were proof of betrayal. Saris had shown Jace classified recordings, some captured with her own implants. They exposed a joint operation between rogue human commanders and alien elites, an unholy alliance formed not to end the war, but to prolong it. Every battle had been carefully staged. Peace talks had been sabotaged. Civilian deaths were manipulated to fuel hatred. But worst of all, the files showed experiments. Children, human and alien, were used as test subjects, weaponized implants, mind control, biological changes. The experiments had no names, just numbers. Jace had seen a video he would never forget. A young boy strapped to a table crying out for help as machines drilled into his spine. The boy's name tag? J. Walker. His father. Jace's hands had shaken when he saw it. His father hadn't died. He had been taken. Saris had lowered her head in shame. Your father still lives, but not whole. Now, as the cabin buzzed with the quiet upload signal, Jace felt a new fire inside him. The rage he had buried for years returned, but not just as hate. It became purpose. They've lied to all of us, he said, watching the progress bar crawl forward. They made us kill each other while they played gods. Saris touched her chest. My people, called them architects. But they're not gods. They're monsters in high places. Max barked sharply, then bolted to the door. Jace turned to Saris. You said they're hunting you. How close? Her reply came too late. A flash exploded outside, and the door cracked open from the horse. Smoke filled the room and Jace was thrown to the ground. He covered the crystal with his body and reached for his rifle. 3 figures entered in full black armor. Not alien, not regular human troops either. These were enforcers, elite agents of the coalition Saris had spoken of. Their armor had no flags, no faces, only red visors glowing like fire. Max lunged without hesitation. He slammed into one of them, tearing at the joints of their suit. Sparks flew as the man screamed and tried to shake him off. Jace fired at the second attacker, catching them in the side. The bullet sparked, but armor cracked. The third aimed for Saris. She didn't duck. Instead, she raised her hand. The alien, tech embedded in her skin, glowed bright silver. A pulse shot out, silent, almost invisible, but it struck the attacker with force. He dropped his weapon and collapsed, stunned. Jace stared in shock. What the hell was that? She breathed. Hard. A gift. From the ones I ran from, I turned it against them. He helped her up. We need to run. The upload. I'll finish it later. We have to survive first. They grabbed the crystal and ducked out the side window as more figures landed, outside the cabin. Max led the way, dashing through the trees with uncanny instinct. Bullets and plasma bolts flew behind them, slicing bark and branches. They didn't stop running for a long time. By the time they reached the cave, Jace's second fallback point, they were soaked in sweat and blood, and Saris could barely walk. Jace laid her down gently and checked Max, who had taken a hit to the shoulder but was still standing. Inside the cave, it was quiet again. Safe for now. The crystal was still intact. The upload had completed 84%. Saris looked at Jace, her voice weak. They won't stop. Even now, they send shadows. Let them come, Jace said, eyes burning. I'm not just fighting for Earth anymore. I'm fighting for the truth. She touched his hand. That's why I chose you. You were the one who escaped the fire, but still came back to help a stranger. Jace didn't reply. Instead, he stared at the stars through the cave's opening. Somewhere out there, people were starting to see the message. Somewhere, the truth was breaking through the lies, and, if they wanted to silence it, they'd have to come through him first, through them. Flight through fire. The cave offered safety, but only for a moment. Outside, distant sounds grew louder, the whirring of hoverbikes, the heavy steps of mechanized boots, and the unnatural hum of aerial drones scanning the landscape. The secret, Alliance Saris had exposed, was not wasting time. They were coming fast, and this time they were bringing the full force of their silent army. Jace paced inside the cave, watching the crystal's small light blink faintly. The message was nearly uploaded to the final relay. If it finished, the evidence would spread everywhere, across civilian news networks to rebel groups, even to factions inside the alien empire who long suspected corruption. But if the enemy reached them first, it would all be erased. Saris lay propped against the stone wall, her breathing uneven. Sweat glistened on her skin and the glow of her body tech had dimmed. She was running out of strength. You can't run anymore, can you? Jace asked gently. She shook her head. Not far, not fast. Jace looked down at Max, who sat between them, his wounded leg trembling but his eyes as fierce as ever. Then we don't run, Jace said. We outsmart them. But as soon as he spoke the words, a new sound split the air. A sudden, sharp blast from above the cave. Dust and pebbles rained down. The ground shook. They found us, Saris whispered. Max barked sharply and darted toward the entrance, only to stop as 3 metallic figures dropped from the sky and blocked the only exit. Their armor was newer this time, sleek, fast, and equipped with active cloaking tech. The red visors glowed. Again, but these were not scouts, these were executioners. Jace raised his weapon. They want to silence you, he told Saris, but I won't let them. She tried to speak, but her voice was fading. Jace didn't wait. He tossed a smoke grenade toward the cave mouth and shouted, "Max, go!" The smoke exploded into a thick gray cloud, hiding them for just a second. That was enough. Max dashed forward and tackled the first soldier, slamming into his legs. The enemy fell backward, firing wildly. Jace charged next, firing his rifle and grabbing Saris with one arm. He dragged her into the forest's edge as bullets sparked off rocks behind them. The night turned violent. Explosions lit up the sky. Branches burned. Smoke followed them like a living shadow. The forest no longer felt like home. It had become a battlefield. But Max kept leading the way, barking to signal danger ahead, zigzagging to confuse pursuit. Even with his injury, he moved with purpose as if he knew exactly where to go, and then Jay saw it, a clearing. Half covered by vines and moss stood the wreckage of an old human dropship. Long forgotten. It had crashed years ago during the early stages of the war, and most people believed it had been stripped bare. But Jace remembered something different. He had played near this wreck as a boy, before the world taught him how to fight. He remembered seeing one thing still working, the emergency power core. Jace rushed Saris inside, pulled open the control panel and grinned. Still functional. He connected the crystal to the backup transmitter. The lights flickered. Power surged. The final 16% of the message began to upload. But so did a warning. The signal would burn out after one burst. "One shot," Jace muttered. "It has to work." Outside, Max barked again. Jace turned just in time to see a squad of black-armored enemies break through the trees. Saris sat up, her hands glowing. Weakly, she pressed them together, and her chest armor opened slightly to reveal a small orb embedded in her skin. "What are you doing?" Jace asked. She looked at him, eyes full of pain, but calm. "They trained me to be a weapon," she said. "They wanted to use this if I failed. Now I give it to you." "No, don't." She touched the orb. A pulse of energy erupted, not outwards but inward, into the dropship's systems. Suddenly the controls lit up. A short-range EMP shield activated. The enemies outside paused, their weapons short-circuiting. Jace didn't understand the full tech, but he didn't need to. The upload hit 100%. A loud chime confirmed it. The message was sent. All of it. All across the stars, screens began to flicker. Hidden files flooded into secure networks. The truth was no longer hidden. Jace turned back to Saris. She had collapsed, her skin pale, the light inside her flickering dangerously low. Max whimpered and nudged her side. Jace knelt. "Saris, stay with me." Her hand brushed his chest. "My people, as we'll see now. Yours will too. Maybe they'll choose peace." She coughed and her eyes fluttered shut. Jace held her close, unsure if she was breathing. Outside, the remaining soldiers retreated. Their mission had failed. The truth had escaped. For the first time in years, Jace didn't feel like a soldier or a survivor. He felt like a witness to something bigger. Max sat beside him, tail still wagging as if to say, "We did it." But Jace knew it wasn't over. The truth was out there, now, but so was the storm that followed it. The dog who wouldn't leave. The crash site was silent now. The jungle canopy swayed overhead, letting shafts of moonlight spill down onto the wrecked dropship. The thick smell of scorched metal and burned leaves still lingered. Sparks hissed from broken cables. Ash danced in the air like snow. But inside the wreck, something far more fragile than any machine was fading. Saris lay limp, her breathing shallow and slow. Her alien skin had lost its shimmer. Her lips were pale, her veins darkening. The burst of energy she used to protect them had drained nearly everything she had left. Jace sat beside her, holding her wrist with trembling fingers, searching for a pulse that flickered like a dying star. And Max. Max wouldn't move. The big dog lay pressed against her side, his head resting gently near her heart. He whined softly, nudging her arm as if begging her to stay. Blood still soaked the fur around his shoulder where shrapnel had cut him. He had refused any treatment. He refused to rest. His mission wasn't over. Jace had tried everything. He'd cleaned Saris's wounds, reactivated a field med kit, and tried the healing foam on her burns. Nothing worked. Her physiology wasn't fully alien, but it wasn't fully human either. The tech she carried in her body was shutting down, maybe dying with her. "I don't know what else to do," Jace whispered, his voice cracking. "You saved me again. I don't know how to return the favor." He looked at Max, who didn't lift his head. The dog just kept watching her. Silent. Still. And then something strange happened. The small orb in Saris's chest, a node of living tech, began to pulse weakly. It glowed once, then twice. Then it stopped. Max raised his head slowly. Then, to Jace's shock, the dog stood on all four legs despite his injury and stepped toward the orb. "Max? What are you doing?" The dog didn't answer, of course. Instead, he did something Jace had never seen him do. He bowed. Front legs bent, head lowered, body perfectly still, like a ritual, like a code Jace didn't understand. And the orb responded. Its soft silver glow grew brighter. Lines of light extended across Saris's chest and neck. Then, without warning, it projected, an image into the air. Jace gasped. It was Ceres, or rather a memory of her, standing in a sterile room, wearing armor similar to what she wore now. In the hologram, she faced a council of faceless figures. "I reject the implant's full control," she said, her voice clear and firm. "If I fall, let my bond mark choose my savior." A faceless voice responded. "Do you understand that this bond is permanent? That your protector will become your anchor?" She nodded. "Yes, I already met him." The image vanished. Jace sat stunned. She meant Max? The orb flared again. A tiny light detached from it, no bigger than a coin, and floated gently down. It hovered just above Max's nose, then blinked and embedded itself in the dog's collar. Max didn't move. He just breathed deeply once. Twice. Then, as Saris's body trembled, the glow around her skin returned, faint but visible. Her breathing grew stronger. Her fingers twitched. "Saris?" Jace whispered, leaning closer. Her eyes opened slowly. She blinked several times, and when she looked at Jace, tears welled up. "He stayed." Jace nodded. "He wouldn't leave you." Max finally lay down again, resting his head against her once more. Saris reached out a shaky hand and touched his fur. Her tech blinked with soft pulses now, no longer chaotic. It was sinking. "He is now my link," she whispered. "My sole anchor." Jace didn't understand the full meaning, but he understood enough. Max had saved her, not by fighting, not by barking, not by biting, but by refusing to give up, by being loyal, by staying. "Looks like you're more than a war dog now," Jace said, smiling faintly. Saris laughed, a weak, soft sound. He was always more. They rested in silence after that, letting the night calm around them. The danger had passed. For now, the message had been delivered. Across star systems, across borders and satellites, the truth now lived in every whisper, every broadcast. But so would the fear. Jace knew retaliation would come. Some would fight to protect the old lies. Others would deny the truth even with proof in their hands. And Saris would be hunted harder than ever. But they weren't alone anymore. Jace gently lifted Saris to a more comfortable position and began setting up a new shelter near the wreck. He wrapped Max's shoulder and used a stim patch to numb the pain. "We'll move again soon," he said softly. "But for now you rest. Both of you." He stood at the edge of the clearing and watched the stars. For the first time in a long time, they didn't look like cold fire. They looked like windows, watching, waiting. Inside the shelter, Saris drifted into sleep. Max never moved from her side. And the war was changing. The war that ended. With a dog's loyalty, 3 weeks passed. The stars that once felt distant and cold now burned with noise. The truth had spread like wildfire. Every screen on Earth, every broadcast tower in the alien empire, had flashed with Cirrus's message. The footage of children, the secret alliance, and the years of manipulated war were impossible to deny. Even when leaders tried to suppress it, someone else always reposted it. The crystal's information had rooted itself into every digital system. Protests broke out in major cities. Soldiers laid down their weapons, some defected, others wept. The war that had lasted for so many years, fueled by hatred, lies, and loss, was beginning to collapse. But not everyone wanted peace. Jace, Ceres, and Max had remained hidden, moving, through the old human supply tunnels in the borderlands. Ceres was still healing. Though her body had regained strength, the link with Max had changed her in ways even she didn't fully understand. Her emotions were stronger now, deeper. She smiled more. She even laughed once, softly, when Max chased his tail in the firelight of a camp they built in the ruins of a bombed-out village. One night, as cold winds brushed through the broken window panes, Jace sat with Ceres beside a small fire. Max lay nearby, chewing on an old piece of scrap metal like it was a bone. "Do you remember the night you found me?" Ceres asked, voice gentle. Jace nodded. "Max found you. I just followed." She smiled. "You still carried me." He paused. Then he said, "Do you think it's over?" She shook her head. "The lie is broken, but the fear still lives. People don't let go of fear easily." She was right. The Shadow Group, those who had orchestrated the war, had lost control, but not all of them had vanished. Some of them had gone underground, taking their secrets and weapons with them. Jace had intercepted encrypted messages. There were plans, not to restart the war, but to create another one. New enemies, new lies. But something had shifted. People no longer believed so easily. The survivors of both sides had begun reaching out. Former enemies met in fields and placed down their weapons. Peace talks weren't just ideas now, they were missions. And Ceres, once seen as a traitor by her people and a threat by humanity, had become a symbol. She was the spark. But the spark wasn't hers alone. It was also Max's. One day, an envoy arrived. 2 shuttles. 1 alien, 1 human. They landed just outside the border ruins. Not soldiers, but diplomats, scientists, voices who had heard the truth and wanted to meet the ones who set it free. Jace didn't want a spotlight. He had never asked to be more than a soldier. But when they asked to see Max, he laughed and said, "He's busy napping." Still, they waited. When Max finally emerged, tail high, limping just a bit, both sides knelt before him. One of the alien leaders whispered, "A guardian, bonded to a bridge." Jace looked at Ceres. She looked back and said simply, "The dog who stayed." That became his title, the dog who stayed. Statues were built. Not of generals, not of warships, or flags, but of Max, standing proud, one paw forward, eyes calm. At his side, a small figure in armor, Ceres. Behind them both, a shadowy man with a rifle on his back, Jace. Years passed. War did not return. The world changed, so did borders. Species that once called each other monsters now shared homes, science, schools. It wasn't perfect. Peace never is. But it was real. And in the quiet hills of Earth, far from the cities and politics, a small cabin stood. The grass grew tall around it. The trees swayed gently. And at the foot of the porch, 2 figures often sat. Jace, older now, his hair streaked with gray, carved wood by hand. Beside him sat Ceres, her skin still faintly glowing, her eyes forever gold. And near their feet lay Max, now slower, older, but no less loyal. Children came from far away just to pet him. Writers, came to hear his story. Some cried, some laughed. Jace always told it the same way. "I didn't change the world," he'd say, pointing to the dog. He did. He saw an enemy on the ground and refused to leave her. He chose kindness over instinct, loyalty over fear. And when the stars blinked above them each night, Saris would sometimes whisper to the sky, "You made monsters of us, but he made us human again." And Max? Max just wagged his tail, because for him, saving the galaxy wasn't a mission. It was simply what you do for the ones you love, even if they used to be your enemy.